The 6th of April, 1700. Denmark has declared war on Sweden and Holstein-Gottorp. In Holstein, the commander of the Danish army, Duke Ferdinand, has begun to march his forces in 2 siege columns toward the cities of Husum and Fredrikstad, and plans on capitulating the small duchy before the Swedish have time to aid their ally. As General Fuchs's 2nd siege column marches toward Fredrikstad, they come upon the Holmer Redoubt, a small, unfinished redoubt built to block the road southward, manned by half a company of men and an artillery piece. With the redoubt refusing calls to surrender, Fuchs decides to move most of his column across the difficult marshland, having buildings and trees torn down to build bridges across the boggy ground. At nightfall, his column had only crossed the distance of just over a mile, but was now over the marshland, and come morning, he leaves a battalion to attack the Holmer Redoubt's less finished southeastern side, while continuing toward Fredrikstad with the rest of his men. While the Danish soldiers of the Queen's Life Regiment had prepared to storm the redoubt, it turned out unnecessary. After a short exchange of cannon fire from both sides, Lieutenant Heideprecht was forced to surrender the redoubt by his own men. All 48 soldiers were taken as prisoners of war, and Fuchs's siege column could now continue safely along the road towards Fredrikstad. Today's wargame is a what-if scenario, based on a possible alternative approach by General Fuchs. Instead of spending the entire day hauling baggage and artillery across the swamp, in our scenario, Fuchs chooses to storm the redoubt from the front. To aid in this endeavor, a company of men has been sent over the marshland to attack the redoubt from its less defended side. The small-scale wargame will be fought using the Pikeman's Lament wargame rules by Osprey Publishing, where each miniature represents a single combatant, and the scenario is a modified version of the Morning Assault mission in the Pikeman's Lament rulebook. The Holsteinian forces manning the redoubt consist of a single 3-pounder artillery piece with its crew, commanded by Lieutenant Heideprecht. The rest of his men are divided into 4 units, 2 12-man units of shot infantry and 2 6-man units of skirmishers. The fortifications of the Holmer Redoubt are strong to their front, but the unfinished walls and shallow ditches only provide minor bonuses from the redoubt's sides. The Danish are attacking the redoubt from 2 directions. A 6-pound gun and an infantry company represented by 3 units of shot infantry are attacking along the road to the north, while the other part of their force is attacking from the southeast, having crossed the swamps during the early hours of the morning. The smaller force consists of 2 grenadier units and a skirmisher unit. As the Danish form outside of firing range to attack, the atmosphere tenses in the Holmer Redoubt. For a moment, the 2 sides seem content to observe the other, perhaps trying to call each other's bluffs before the inevitable bloodshed. Finally, a signal is given by the Danish to inform the troops to commence the attack. 3 blank shots are fired in the Danish baggage train, and the men of the 2nd Battalion of the Queen's Life Regiment, under Lieutenant Colonel Christian Brockdorf, begin their advance against the Holmer Redoubt. The marshland turns out to be worse than expected, and the troops advancing toward the flank find movement difficult. The devastating opening volley of the Holsteinian troops rings out, felling nearly a dozen men and causing the rightmost unit of Danish infantry to fall backwards. The Danish cannon answers in turn, but the cannonball strikes the earthworks with little effect. Another volley rips through the frontal assault, forcing the Danes back once more and routing the center infantry unit. Meanwhile, the encircling troops have finally made it out of the swamp and are coming to musketry range near the flank. Fire from the skirmishers begins to batter the advancing grenadiers, who continue their advance nonetheless. As the rightmost Danish infantry appears to falter once more, Heidepike sees the flanking attack as the greater threat and orders 12 men to bolster the line of skirmishers. The redeployment will take some time, however, and the Danish are already closing in. As Heidebrecht's attention is focused to the exposed flank, the Danish cannon rings out once more, this time by its mark. The Grenadiers begin their charge into the fieldworks, downing 2 skirmishers with their grenades as they cross the small ditch. The close-range fighting in the Redoubt is fierce. Concentrated fire forces some of the Grenadiers back out of the Redoubt, while more of the Holsteinian infantry are bayoneted in a confusing melee. Despite this, Heidebrecht's men manage to regroup, and with devastating fire, the last of the Danish men in the Redoubt are shot down. While the remaining Grenadiers mount another push, the attack falters in the face of the massed firepower of the Holsteinian force. Meanwhile, the remaining men of the frontal assault turn to charge the fortifications, not knowing that the attack from the side has failed. The fighting turns out largely inconclusive, with minor casualties on both sides, and the Danish eventually falling back to regroup. Seeing the frontal assault broken and pushed back, as well as the retreat of the remaining men of the enveloping attack, Lieutenant Colonel Brockdorf calls off the assault. While the Danish have failed to take the Redoubt in their first assault, the victory for the Holsteinian troops is bittersweet. The Danes have lost between 30 and 40 men in the assault, to the 9 dead of Heidebrecht's men, but the Danish will be mounting another attack and will be bringing more guns to bear within the hour. Meanwhile, the Holsteinian forces have now lost a fifth of their fighting strength, meaning that a call to parley may be the only option going forward. Despite this, the battle is a tactical victory for the Holstein forces, who have managed to hold the Redoubt against a superior force.